Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Eric Bolling, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. It was a speech unlike any other we've seen from President Trump. His first address to a joint session of Congress, winning widespread praise. It was certainly the most presidential we've ever seen, Mr. Trump, a speech some are calling more effective than his inaugural. He struck a very optimistic and conciliatory tone last night while delivering his message of unity and strength.
We are one people with one destiny. We all bleed the same blood. We all salute the same great American flag. And we all are made by the same God. I am asking all citizens to embrace this renewal of the American spirit. I am asking all members of Congress to join me in dreaming big and bold and daring things for our country. I am asking everyone watching tonight to seize this moment, believe in yourselves, believe in your future, and believe once more in America.
He repeated a number of his themes from the campaign trail, including his America First agenda.
America must put its own citizens first, because only then can we truly make America great again. We will respect the foreign rights of all nations, and they have to respect our rights as a nation also. Free nations are the best vehicle for expressing the will of the people, and America respects the right of all nations to chart their own path. My job is not to represent the world. My job is to represent the United States of America.
All right, so the speech, Greg, lasting a little over an hour, and I don't think anybody lost interest.
No, that was a home run. And how do you know? If you see the bitter, wistful tweets from Hollywood as it was going on, they sounded like plaintive cries from the bottom of a well. Like poor Sarah Silverman and Patton Oswalt, they didn't know what to do. And I don't think you heard anything from the Clinton side. Like you didn't hear from Hillary, you didn't hear from her lingering daughter, what's her name? You know, the fact is, there was nothing they could put their hands on. And I think the best metaphor I could come up with, this election season has been like a long haul flight, where when it begins in turbulent weather, it's very turbulent. Going up, it was frightening, and as you're climbing, there's all these bumps. And I felt like last night, you finally hit smooth air, and it was like everybody went like, you know what? He might be okay. And I'm talking about the critics. They're thinking like, maybe he's not Hitler. Maybe he's actually pretty good. And so you start thinking about the Democrats as they're listening to things from him that they agree with. What are you going to do? You're like a polar bear on a shrinking piece of ice in the middle of the ocean. You're going to be the last person on that ice, ignoring the things that he's saying. And you're going to have to find a backup plan to hate Donald Trump when it turns out that Darth Vader really is your dad. Because a lot of the stuff he said.
And he's a good guy.
Yeah.
As a kid once told me at a climate change event, polar bears can swim, but they can't swim forever.
Oh, I'm going to cry now.
I was thinking of you last night, Eric, a couple of times. I could actually even show you my notes. But one of the things was somebody said that if the pundits liked it last night, that must mean that the people did not, because they want like what they've seen from him as a candidate. But I think it actually maybe worked for both audiences.
Amazingly, so there's a poll out today, 78% approval rating.
Oh, do we like this?
No,
is this a poll that we like?
Let's talk about the people then.
This is a valid, accurate.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand what polls are
Let's stay with the people.
Or not.
For the first time, after a speech and in the morning, the opposite party pundits had to say, you know what? We gave him a chance, which I recommended on Monday. We gave him a chance, and I liked it. There were a couple of them from different networks saying he became president last night.
Van Jones of CNN.
Van Jones at CNN. We had a couple here. But here's the kicker. Now never Trumpers don't have an argument, at least for now, unless they don't like what he's actually doing.
Why do you have to do it that way, though? Why can't you look at it the other way, which is maybe now they have somebody that they can agree with?
There was the opposition party, the Democrats, and then there was the anti-Trumpers who didn't like him, and there was the pro-Trump group, was about 40% or so. So now these never Trumpers are going, I kind of like that. He was really compelling, and he was patriotic, and he was talking about the military. In the moment, a 2.5-minute standing ovation, they're going to have a hard time pushing back on him now. So that puts the Democrats in a box. This morning you saw Pelosi and Schumer coming out very negative on that speech. It almost highlights the fact that they're only about being obstructionists. They're not about the country. They're not about what's best for America. And all they are is anti-Trump.
They're obstructionists.
That's it.
Okay,
That's it.
I see it. That would be a good conversation for another day. But I wanted to mention something that President Obama's former speechwriter, Tommy Vietor, said, which is that good speech. Now comes the policy. So onward is like 48 hours of a speech it's not going to last that long. If you are a Democrat that's upset, you'll have plenty of things in the next 4 years you want to complain about.
Absolutely, but they have to give him credit because that speech was, I think it was phenomenal. It was well delivered. It was both aspirational and inspirational. And I think that whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican and you love this country and you want to see families doing well and you want to see wholesale policy change in a positive direction, that was more than encouraging. And you saw by some of the applause that he got from both sides. So a lot of things that we talked about, he did hit in that speech, and it was very, emotional, including the part with, the Navy SEAL, the widow. Really incredible in terms of the emotion there, and no one could deny that except for Debbie Wasserman.
I thought that was an American moment, which we're going to show after we get Juan's initial take, because we were on last night on the panel after sleeping on it overnight. Any different thoughts when you woke up?
No, I thought he did his job, but I mean, I'm flattered. I'm so flattered. In fact, I'm wearing the tie you gave me for Christmas, the Trump tie.
I gave that to you.
No. Did you give it to me?
I gave you
the Redskins.
Oh, you gave me the Redskins. All right. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
You already forgot. Typical liberal.
No, it's
give
like,
them something, they forget.
No, it's like a significant other.
Oh.
But I'm just saying to you, I am so flattered. All of you are interpreting this speech in terms of the way Democrats reacted. Actually, I think you should be thinking about how Republicans reacted, because the Republican reaction this morning is, phew, wow, it's okay. We think we can play ball. He didn't give you specifics. He didn't give you anything that you could hold on to. And people had said, oh, this is going to be different. But given what happened during the inauguration speech, when he was so much bombastic and talking about American carnage, and it was like awful. All of a sudden now Republicans are like, well, no. He did it. He's okay. We can work with him. But as far as Democrats, you guys are really wishing up a hill here or something.
Because he also, political reporting, that he actually took serious, hand in his speech in terms of making sure, because after the first pass, he wanted it to be a bit more warmer, more about unity in the country, and I think he hit that message. It was good
right at the top, I felt that piece was stitched on, as I said to you last night, the thing about the Jewish community and all the attacks on the Jewish community centers and the graveyards. But I think it was important that he did it. I don't know if that was Jared's work or whatever, but I think that was appropriate and it's helpful. That might have been the most unifying message, Greg.
Well, I think I said this to you back in November, Juan. If you don't like Donald Trump in November, just give him some time, because he changes, and he's changed his political positions a lot. And I mean, it is interesting to see Republicans who call people rhinos now embracing him, because that was a pure down the middle centrist Republican. He campaigned on red meat, but he's governing on free-range chicken, which actually a lot of people happen to like.
Everybody likes chicken.
If you're not an ideologue, you got to be okay with this.
But guess what? A lot of the people in the Republican caucus are ideologues. They don't want to compromise. They don't want to deal. But the question for me is, somebody said today, is that a pivot? And we've been looking for the presidential pivot from Donald Trump for a long time. Or was it a head fake? And will he just go back to being Donald Trump?
Let's get to the most dramatic moment of the night, and that was the one that Kimberly just mentioned, when President Trump saluted fallen Navy SEAL Ryan Owens and his wife, Corinne.
The challenges we face as a nation are great, but our people are even greater. And none are greater or braver than those who fight for America in uniform. We are blessed to be joined tonight by Corinne Owens, the widow of U.S. Navy Special Operator, Senior Chief William Ryan Owens. Ryan died as he lived, a warrior and a hero, battling against terrorism and securing our nation. Ryan's legacy is etched into eternity. Thank you. Thank you.
And for those of you that saw that, it was a long and sustained ovation, Eric, that I just felt it was an American moment. I know it is not without its controversy, but I feel like everybody that was standing there was really doing it for her and for the sacrifice of her amazing husband.
Yeah, and 2.5-minute ovation, that's what we were talking about. So that line, his name, Ryan Owens, his name will be etched into eternity. That was a fantastic line that Donald Trump delivered. Now, in the aftermath of that, the despicable left is coming out saying, well, he threw that in there, and he threw the part about the general saying that there was intelligence gleaned from the raid that unfortunately we lost Ryan Owens. As a way to hide from the blame for losing Ryan Owen, and that is awful. If you if you watch that speech, you could not keep your tears back. You had to cry along with Karen or Corinne Owens while that was going on. But the left, no, they wanted to play politics out of it. Donald Trump, you know what he could have, if he really wanted to be political, he could have said, look, this is an operation that was started prior to me taking office. It was an operation that, yes, I condoned on January 28th, when there was a full moon, and the general said it has to be done under a full moon. So I said, go. But he didn't say any of that. He went back and said, give this woman her moment, give Ryan Owen his moment. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who felt that moment right there was the moment that Donald Trump became POTUS 45 for the people who weren't supporters of his.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought it was terrific television. It's almost like he produced that moment. He worked towards that moment. But I must say, I recall that you and Greg were highly critical when Obama did something similar with Corey Remsburg back in 2014. You said it was a shield from legitimate criticism.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I'm always conflicted about this type of exercise, and I hesitate to use the criticism is they're using people as props, and both sides do it. So if the Democrats are going to do it, the Republicans can do it. The difference here is I don't think you could find a more real response than a woman looking up to the sky for her late husband.
Saying, love you, baby.
Final word to Kimberly.
Yeah, I just think this was such a poignant example and reminder that freedom does not come without a price. And he put his life on the line like so many men and women do to secure our liberties and our freedoms. And I think there's nothing about it that was a prop. That was pure human emotion. He deserved it. President Trump, when it counted, called right away, went to go see them. And really, I think that was one of the first things that happened to him as President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, to know that you have lives in your hands, that are your personal responsibility to make choices, and choices that occur sometimes in horrible loss of life and casualty. So I think it's a wonderful tribute.
Ryan Owens comes from a family of public servants.
Distinguished
really
service.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And we're grateful. Yes.
I have a piece of advice, though, because the speech was, Trump's speech was probably the best speech he's ever done, I would say.
I think so.
Don't ruin the moment by bragging about it. Like, walk away like it was no big deal.
Did you see somebody on background at the White House today said they were surprised that people thought it was great because it's things that he's always said, so they were surprised by it.
I just think, you shouldn't have to bring it up. Because don't say today or tomorrow, yeah, everybody loved that speech. I did a great job. No, act like it was no big deal.
So hit the half-court shot and
walk away.
He did. He tweeted, and the only tweet was in capital letters, thank you.
Yeah.
That was understated.
We can do it for him. 40 million people watched, record.
Yeah, it was the largest, and Fox was #1.
Hey, that's my one more thing.
Of course.
Well.
All right, we're going to move on. Many Democrats did not look happy last night during the president's address. Greg's reaction to their reactions next.
I felt sorry for the Democrats watching Trump. They're so grim, so sad, so constipated. I guess for them, it's like watching a band you hate cover a song that you love. After all, Trump's saying things they wanted to hear, but damn, it's from him. They're like a child who refuses to play with an awesome toy because it's a hand-me-down. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Keith Ellison, look at them. They're like mice at a cat party. Ugh. Terrified to move a muscle, even during the most moving passages, their faces as taut as a double-strung tennis racket. It was as if remaining still was an actual political stance. And for the Democratic Party, it is. Check out the odd response after Trump's speech. It was like a play put on by hostages.
I'm Steve Beshear. I was governor of Kentucky from 2007 to 2015. Now I'm a private citizen. I'm here in Lexington, Kentucky, some 400 miles from Washington, at a diner with some neighbors, Democrats and Republicans, where we just watched the president's address. I'm a proud Democrat, but first and foremost, I'm a proud Republican and Democrat and mostly American.
Well, that was about as staged as an open casket. The spectators as stiff as a wax museum, resembling a diorama of Trump's America. They pick an old white guy as the lead. No Cory Booker, no Kamala Harris, no what's her name. Talk about pandering. Yet it felt like a slow day at the DMV. So what were they trying to say to America? That we forgot you? That we embraced identity and division, and now we want you back? Too late. For 8 years, you embraced soaring rhetoric untethered to substance. So Trump went another way. Blunt and direct, he replaced emotive drama with relatable ideas. It was as scary to the Democrats as it was convincing to everyone else. Maybe that explains their frozen fear. The speech worked, and they knew it. Juan, I got to go to you first. That was the weirdest rebuttal ever. Don't you? It was like they reconstructed it in a grad student's dream. Like, this is how Trump America would look. We need some older white people here. Is that what they did?
I liked
Some.
no
Cory Booker.
I liked what you said about the diorama because that's what it looked like to me. But I think that their idea was, and this would have come from Charles Schumer, who's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi, was that Steve Beshear, as governor of Kentucky, had put together a pretty popular, successful version of Obamacare in the state, and that's what they were after.
Really? I thought they were mailing it in, Eric. I mean, this is a former governor. He's not even working.
No, it's really
what a
it's
fail
bad.
on the
No one was
Democrats'
available.
part. And there's an opportunity to show that you are the up-and-coming party. I tweeted, hey, better luck next time, Dems, with that response. Hey, you can still look forward to 2024.
Yeah.
Because now I think they're locking Trump into a second term already. Governor Beshear, 72-year-old white guy, surrounded, by the way, every one of
Are we going to
those
complain about
shots.
70-year-old white
No,
guy?
no. Let me finish.
Why are you throwing shade
Allow
on?
me to finish.
That's our viewership.
Surrounded by everyone else.
love
Now,
you.
You stage these events, as you well know, with people usually of color, white, black, Hispanic, men, women.
Like this table.
Oh, well, but you do that. And so they decided to stage, those are all staged with a 72-year-old former governor who went rambling on. At one point, he called himself a Republican. No, I'm a Democrat. A little distracted. But you stage it with some people who looked just like him. Take a look at the picture. I'm not kidding. These are picked people, chosen people that sit behind the shot. I mean, is the Democrat Party that out of touch, or just that bench that not deep?
Wait a second. I thought you would be sympathetic to the idea that they are reaching out to blue-collar, white America.
Is this the Democrats saying, you know what, we're doing our autopsy right now, and we've completely pivoted back to Middle America? Is that what they're going to do now?
Think that, what do you mean? I don't think they ever left Middle America, but I think clearly they lost the election, and here is an evidence.
They lost Middle America. The only thing they won was New York and California and Illinois, and the rest, Middle America.
Oh,
went
yeah.
the other
Well, let me
way.
just tell you, the popular vote's still Democrat.
Let's not replay the election one more time.
One more thing.
Dana, they also he didn't really talk about the actual issues that the Democratic Party had been, like, I don't think he mentioned climate change at all.
Well, which is actually probably this, right? I mean, I wasn't going to actually defend this response. In fact, I think that both parties should end the practice of the response, because you're never, ever, ever going to be able to compete with whoever the president is. Just let whoever it is have their moment, and if they call you to do the response, Dana's rule is say no. Always decline it. But I do think that they are trying to respond to something. They didn't do identity politics in that
true.
response.
You're right.
They didn't do climate change. They didn't do social issues. They were talking about the economic issues. And in Appalachia, you do have people that have come to at least respect the Obamacare, or the version of it that they had in Kentucky. That's for them, and they are worried about it being taken away. So I can understand what they were thinking. I don't think it was effective, but I get what they were trying to do. And those were, even though they were planted pots behind them, those are actually
they're real people. They're real people.
Those are the people.
But I think they were. I just felt that they had to just stand there, sit there.
Yeah,
perfectly.
nobody wants to be the
It was like a
product placement.
mannequin challenge. I
Well,
felt
it
bad
was
for
very
them.
staged, but those are the deplorables according to Hillary Clinton, which is
That's
those are the
true.
working men and women, the working class people that were forgotten by America, by the Democratic Party. So I get it. They're trying to reach out. It seems to me that they're trying to learn something, that you can't leave a large portion of the country behind and expect to hold on to the Oval, hold on to Congress, and this is what happened.
Well,
Can I just throw to my favorite part, which was this is Liz Warren during the speech.
The help of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we have formed a council with our neighbors in Canada to help ensure that women entrepreneurs have access to the networks, markets, and capital they need to start a business and live out their financial dreams.
I'm not a great lip reader, but I think she just said, "What did he say?" And then she started applying.
About women.
So at least he was being polite.
Can I go back to that response for one more second? If you're going to do this as a Democrat, do you go to the reddest of red states, Kentucky, which has 2 Republican senators, and try and do it there? I just think that
Eric,
was
he's a Democrat.
Absolute
The governor,
failure.
he was elected. He was a popular governor in Kentucky. But let me move this on a second.
Why not?
Wow.
Cory
No,
Booker?
because they took Dana's role. Just say no.
Well,
This
maybe
poor
Dana,
guy. He
Dana
said
should
yes.
be right
That was
because
it.
you don't see too many successful. But the point here, from the Democrats' perspective, is the lack of specifics in President Trump's speech. That if you go back, Ronald Reagan, when he was doing this, he's talking about a 10% tax cut, and he's explaining what it means. Obama's talking clearly about energy. He's talking about health care. You know,
That's being
this
pretty
guy,
picky, Juan.
that this guy has no specifics, Dana?
Well, I think
picky.
we all know that they're working on the specifics. I think that's a little.
All right.
If he had given too many specifics, people would have been complaining because he had too many.
gotta go.
numbers.
This is a
It would have been
It's 40
substantive.
days, Juan. It's
40
40 days.
days.
If next year he goes to that exact same venue, the State of the Union, and doesn't have specifics, then you got an argument.
Well, I think it's Republicans who have the argument. They'd like to know, how do we get on board?
It was better
right.
for them not to have specifics.
Let's get on board this tweet, huh? I mean, this tease. Excuse me. My brain. Up ahead,
Whoa.
President Trump talked tough on immigration last night, but he's also signaling an openness to softening his position on illegals already here. That's next in the 5.
Last night, the president delivered a pointed and powerful defense of his actions to crack down on illegal immigration, conveying the urgency of getting the dangerous illegals out.
We are removing gang members, drug dealers, and criminals that threaten our communities and prey on our very innocent citizens. Any in Congress who do not believe we should enforce our laws, I would ask you this one question. What would you say to the American family that loses their jobs, their income, or their loved one because America refused to uphold its laws and defend its borders? Our obligation is to serve, protect, and defend the citizens of the United States.
And he reiterated his vow to seal up our southern border.
We will stop the drugs from pouring into our country and poisoning our youth, and we will expand treatment for those who have become so badly addicted. We want all Americans to succeed, but that can't happen in an environment of lawless chaos. We must restore integrity and the rule of law at our borders. For that reason, we will soon begin the construction of a great wall along our southern border.
All right, KG. I noticed that
And I got excited when he says rule of law.
Well, no,
yes.
that not one Democrat got excited. When he
Well,
said
they weren't
A, rule
excited.
of law, and B, southern border.
Well,
wall.
also, we have an obligation, we talk about this all the time, to protect our borders, right? And he's also very fond of saying, you're not a country if you do not have your borders. People think having a border is a bad thing, that it's mean-spirited. It's not. We have locks on our doors. We have gated communities, and there's nothing wrong with that. Make the rules clear so that there is a clear path. If people want to come here and be part of the country, fantastic. We're a nation founded on immigrants. I love that. I come from that as well. But do it the right way, and then protect our borders in terms of our national security and uphold the laws so they are not applied arbitrarily or capriciously. That's all I'm saying.
Gee, why do Democrats have a problem with the rule of law?
The rule of law? I'll tell you what.
That's what he's saying.
What
He's
we
saying
have, no.
uphold the law.
That
If
is,
you come across
this
the
whole thing
border,
is so distorted.
breaking the law.
I mean, there's studies that show like 98% of illegal immigrants have no criminal record, nothing, zero. But this conversation is all about people who are murderers and they're illegal immigrants killing people. Stop and you think to yourself, why is this going on? He says drugs are pouring in. We are at the lowest level. I think there was one exception in terms of drugs pouring in. We're at the lowest level, according to Customs and Border Patrol, that we have been in years for cocaine and marijuana crossing the southern border.
Yeah, because they've changed it to opioids.
Right.
People.
They've switched
Yeah,
the
but that's
drug of
homegrown.
choice.
That's not coming
No,
across the
that stuff's coming-
southern border.
That stuff's coming in. Dana, your thought? Were you waiting? Were you hoping to hear some sort of clarity on, that leak or that innuendo out of the White House that they were going to.
Yeah, and I didn't
adjust
actually
their
get a chance to
policy.
read it, but there's some story on Mediaite about that as a diversionary tactic on immigration so that they could get some good coverage leading into the speech, which I don't think they need because they got it anyway. The other reason I thought of you last night is when he talked about increasing legal immigration, which is something you were talking about. But he went a step further. It hasn't gotten much attention, and it was about merit-based immigration, which is what Sweden tried to implement 2 years ago because they realized they had been way too generous. And this would mean that if you were going to have a family member come over, if you want to immigrate, you either have to prove that you can be self-sufficient, you can take care of yourself, or you have a family member who can cover your expenses so that you are not automatically put on welfare rolls here in America. I thought that was interesting and didn't get enough attention. He added that
you like
point
it?
about, yeah, I do. I think it actually makes a lot of sense. And I don't know why it got skipped over, but maybe I guess they'll have more talk
nugget.
about it. But he did not mention the idea that was floated at the lunch by him, which was maybe I'll bring up this idea that I think it's time to have a compromise, not comprehensive, a compromise immigration bill that would allow some sort of path to legality for people who are here illegally. Maybe he's inching towards that. I hope it wasn't a head fake. Or if it is, we should know, because that will help you figure out if you're going to be able to get these other pieces of immigration done through the Congress.
Your thoughts, Greg? Was that section of his speech totally partisan?
No, it was totally relatable. And deporting criminals, enforcing law. Again, this is not soaring rhetoric that we had for 8 years. It's just blunt sense. I think that's why it's refreshing. And it's also a reward to his enthusiastic base who took him to this dance. If he didn't hit this note, that'd be like ditching the bride at the wedding to hook up with her twin brother.
Yeah, but that means absolutely demonizing people unfairly. Red meat for the base. Throw the red meat.
Juan didn't even listen to that last part.
No,
He didn't even listen.
I did. You
Groom
said.
goes with the brother, leaves the bride for the man at the wedding. Interesting.
Yeah, but his point was his base expected this red meat.
Yes.
That's what you're.
Nobody expects the other thing.
Right. I was like, yeah, I haven't seen. Yeah.
Remember, DMVs, an embassy, if you're illegal, you can go in there. You're not going to get arrested. You get your path to legalization without being arrested. Not citizenship, but legalization. Anyway, all right, it was a relief to hear Mr. Trump confront our greatest enemy directly by name last night, radical Islamic terrorism.
Not a Kimberly choice. President Trump used a lot of strong words in his address last night, particularly when he explained he plans to keep America safe. Some of the toughest talk we've heard yet from a U.S. president on terror.
We are also taking strong measures to protect our nation from radical Islamic terrorism. We have seen the attacks in France, in Belgium, in Germany, and all over the world. We cannot allow a beachhead of terrorism to form inside America. We cannot allow our nation to become a sanctuary for extremists. That is why my administration has been working on improved vetting procedures, and we will shortly take new steps to keep our nation safe and to keep those out who will do us harm.
All right, Eric, so tough talk on terror. This is definitely red meat for his followers, supporters, people who are very serious about national security.
Wasn't it amazing? Didn't you feel good? I was watching with my wife, Adrienne. She honestly was saying, finally, thank God he's talking tough on terror. I mean, for 8 years, we haven't had those words. We've heard, a reference to ISIS. But look, there he is. That's what we've been saying. Give the guy a chance. The guy wants to be he wants to be pro-law enforcement, tough on terror, and create jobs. And you saw it, and I think, again, I found it a very, very uniting speech last night.
I think so, too. Did you like this part of it, Juan?
No.
I did. I just ever remained like the glass half full, and I was hoping, but okay.
No, but so what I read in the paper today was that his national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, told him, don't do it. It doesn't help us to defeat radical Islamic terrorists. If we want to go get the bad guys, we need allies, and we're going to have to rely on people. We don't want to start a war between every Muslim in the world and the United States. But
you're conflating radicalism with every Muslim. That's bigoted.
No, it's not.
Yes,
I wasn't conflating.
You just said you don't want to piss off all the Muslims by going after radical Islam.
McMaster, by the way, I agree. So I'm not trying to say, but I don't think that I'm talking about all Muslims. I'm talking about people, especially the bad guys, the terrorists, who will say that these folks are coming after all Muslims.
Well, let them say what they want.
That's it. Now that he said radical Islamic terror, we're really mad now. Now we want to kill him even more than we were.
We're going to cut your head off twice.
Yeah.
Now we're going to form ISIS. Now you've done. Oh, sorry.
I
They're
see.
already
So
there.
you guys belittle the idea of
Look,
Muslim allies
No,
in
okay.
this war.
I'm waiting for them to step up.
If you have a doctor who tells you it's just a lump when you have cancer is not a good doctor. The first step is you have to diagnose what the problem is, even if it's bad news. You have to know what it is. The problem is, ISIS will go away, but the doctrine still stays. It's not about the dudes. It's about the doctrine. And we have to come up with a long-term solution about dealing with something that appeals to losers in this world. Now that success is broadcast globally. So the people that don't have success seek out things like ISIS as their way of they can't get material acquisition,
Right.
so they'd rather destroy you. That is the bigger challenge for us. We have to figure out what that is, but at least we're now identifying what it is.
No, but you
Absolutely.
were right. I just thought that was an insightful comment, but that has nothing to do with radical Islamic. I mean, what
It's
that
one-
has to
it's-
do with is a lot of young men who don't have jobs and who
Yes.
think that a lot of
Yeah,
these
I know, but
autocrats in
God.
the Muslim world
Is there
don't
any-
care
It's
about it.
not about the
indication that
ISIS
for-
job fair. People always say that. It's so
ISIS
frustrating to
job
me.
fair.
It's not. It's not like these are the best dudes, and if only they had a job at Hot Dog on a Stick, they'd be happy. It's not like that at all. And don't blame it on the clouds either.
Yeah, I could see the ISIS job fair. The
Yeah.
line for blowing up people would be really long.
Yeah, caliphate line. Okay, go ahead, Dina.
Well, the only thing I think I'll add is that every president, when they speak, is speaking to multiple audiences all at once. So the first audience would be the American public. The second would be his own military. Okay, so that message of saying radical Islamic terrorism, what does it say to them? Something to our allies and to the enemy. The enemy is listening. And I think that because radical Islamic terrorism is a word, it's like rubbing the cat the wrong way. Everybody gets their cackles up like, I'll say it, you won't say it, and it becomes like this team sport thing. Having said it once in front of a joint session of Congress, if General McMaster is successful, maybe the president doesn't actually need to see it again. What really matters is that the Pentagon presented to the president a plan to defeat ISIS, and we'll see what they say. I understand that they probably have to go, but I hadn't spoken yet.
And therefore,
Whoever it is that is speaking in her ear, telling her to tease.
And what did I do?
And my ears.
I
her the-
did.
Well, you know,
They gave
you know what?
me the
Can I make-
stand down order.
Can
and
I make
didn't
another
do it.
point, though? No, I actually want to. I want to because religion, with the benefit to civilization, was it counters your violent impulses. Like if you're mad that somebody else has something, religion teaches you that there's a better life somewhere else and not to be jealous. But ISIS actually reverses
way.
it
Yeah, I
and
agree.
says, "Join us. We kill the people who have things."
And I'll throw one more thing in there.
Oh,
that
my
any indication that not saying it. Okay,
Okay.
fine, I'll take that
Fine.
out. Any indication that for 8 years of not saying it has made us any safer at all in the
Yes.
world, or made any
Of
terrorist
course,
group like
that's an
like us
easy one.
anymore?
That's an easy one
Fort
because
Hood,
our allies
Orlando,
have
San
helped us.
Bernardino,
Oh, gee.
Oklahoma. They still want to kill us. Why?
Who helped us fight and win in Iraq, right? Who helped us win in Afghanistan?
Who?
Come on.
Well,
A lot of these Muslim
Are they
countries.
backing out because he said Islamic
No, they're
terror?
not, because they still have a vested interest. They have skin in the game and blood in the game, because ISIS and all these guys, radical jihadists, want to get them too.
And
Last
another
night-
thing.
I should have been in Benghazi because I don't listen to the stand down order. Last night, the president gave an update on his campaign pledge to drain the swamp. It got one of the biggest reactions of the night from Democrats in the room.
Most Democrats attending last night's joint session speech by President Trump sat quietly in their chairs, withholding applause. But some did erupt in laughter on a couple of occasions. This is one of them.
We have begun to drain the swamp of government corruption by imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by executive branch officials and a lifetime ban. Thank you. Thank you. And a lifetime ban on becoming lobbyists for a foreign government.
So, Dana, this is a moment when the Democrats are like, what is going on? Because he promised a ban during the campaign on administration officials, congressional officials becoming lobbyists. Turns out it only applies to people who are lobbying their own agency. It doesn't apply to Congress. What drained the swamp?
There's always some loopholes Although I did think it was pretty funny that the visual was that the president's talking about draining the swamp in Washington. We've just come off of a populist type election where people are sick to death of Washington, and the Democrats can't even clap for that. That was
Yeah, Eric, what do you
I
think?
was laughing at that.
Steve Bashir said we got a cabinet of billionaires.
Right. So I'm writing this book, The Swamp, and I'm dealing with all the various ways of crime, corruption, cronyism going on in D.C. and how Trump could drain it. And one of the chapters that I'm researching right now is on lobbying. Dana sent me an amazing piece on a lobbyist who ended up committing suicide. Long story. But the point is, Jack Abramoff was a lobbyist who went to jail for lobbying. He got caught dipping into the till for his own. And he said this ban is amazing because no one else is doing it. The only way you get a lobbying ban is by getting Congress to do it. And Congress obviously doesn't want to do it on either side of the aisle because a lot of their fundraising, a lot of their lifestyle comes from lobbying.
Well,
so he said this is monumental.
Well, from what all I've read, Kimberly, it's less than what Obama or George W. Bush had in terms of limitations on people who are in government becoming lobbyists.
Okay, well, let's see what he actually does about it. He's made a promise, and we'll see what happens.
What about the tax cuts, Greg? Tax cuts for the big and wealthy? Is that
I'm all
draining
for
the
that.
swamps?
By the way, I would like to be a lobbyist for lobbies.
They have one.
Really show up and stress the...
No, there's an association of lobbyists.
Oh, okay.
No, I was ever in your joke?
Yeah, no, I was just going to point out to stress the importance of lobbies in your home,
That's
in your
what I
office.
thought. Like out
It's
there.
okay, your joke is fine.
I get it. That was good. One more thing up next.
It's time now for one more thing. Kimberly kicks us off.
Yes, and I have a great one more thing that Dana and I shared in common. One of our friends, Bonner, Blue Bolton. Exciting news. The cast of season 24 of Dancing with the Stars was announced earlier today. And one of the stars is a very familiar face from this show. He's our good friend and professional bull rider and model, Bonner Bolton. Take a look at him there. And that's when Dana and I did the interview. So that was pretty exciting. So unfortunately, from the past, he was injured. He was sidelined from the sport of bull riding. And after a bad fall, he had an injury, the same one that Christopher Reeves, and he was temporarily paralyzed. He was able to learn to walk again and basically rebuilt himself into a great career modeling and acting, and now he's going to try his take at dancing. And I was able to speak to him earlier today and see if he can do this and inspire people coming back from an injury that, you know, you can make it happen.
It was so fun and great. I wish him the best. I actually might watch this season.
Two women are very excited about this.
Look how short I am, too. Okay, Juan.
Not just two.
Very sweet moment last night. President Trump had as a guest Justice Scalia's widow, Maureen Scalia. Scalia died February 13 last year, and when Trump called out to Mrs. Scalia, her husband's former colleagues broke their traditional stoic pose and applauded her. It's the first time I've ever seen the justices, who usually remain seated and silent during these addresses, show a lot of love. Scalia's son, Christopher, tweeted that he thought the whole thing was, quote, beautiful. I agree.
She is really lovely. She looks like somebody you'd want as your friend and neighbor and mom and grandma and anything else.
Keep going.
Agree.
You're next.
All right, 5 years ago today, Andrew Breitbart passed away. Here's a reminder of how far ahead of time he was.
What I love about the global warming crowd is it's that group of people out there that cannot acknowledge that Islamic extremism is the real big threat of our time. And so instead of confronting that huge, massive thing where we could all die in 10 or 15 years, and they have no answers for it.
That was on Red Eye 10 years ago. Wow. So that's how far ahead he was. And I want people to be remembered when they hear the website Breitbart that it's not just a website, it's actually a hell of a man. He's a legend.
And a good friend to you.
Yeah.
I still have the last tweet. I DM'd him. Andrew, please tell me it's not true. I'm hearing some stuff, and I kept that. I still have all those tweets. Okay, very quickly. Last night, Fox News scored #1 overall ratings. We had 10.8 million viewers for the president's speech addressed to the joint session, beating all cable, but also beating broadcast networks. NBC, CBS, and ABC were 2, 3, and 4. That's a tribute to Brett, Martha, Dana, Juan, Tucker, and the others who were on camera, but also some of the directors as well. Scott, our director here, directed that show, and Mike was the technical director. So congratulations to everyone at Fox.
Did you say Chris Wallace?
I didn't realize. I'm sorry. Chris Wallace.
Charles Krauthammer, Chris Starwalt. Who else was there? Marie Hart.
Marie Hart was there.
I'm missing one person.
Better hurry up.
Sorry, well,
Jerry
Laura
Springer?
Ingraham, she was there. I know. I'm going to save my one more thing for tomorrow because it is that special. It is about the president revoking the Obama-era Waters of the United States rule.
Yes, I can't wait.
Feeling about that. This
I'm not sleeping.
is a deep tease, people. Set your DVR so you never miss an episode of The Five. That is it for us. Special report is next.